Have you ever stared at a massive summer harvest or maybe a ridiculous deal at the farmer's market and just wished you could hit a giant pause button on all that freshness? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going over the absolute ultimate step-by-step guide to freezing your vegetables.
Let's be real for a second. We've all been there, right? You buy those gorgeous bell peppers or green beans, blink, and suddenly you're throwing out wilted, sad veggies you just didn't get around to cooking. It's so frustrating. Not to mention, trying to buy those same veggies in the dead of winter costs an absolute fortune. So, we're tackling a dual problem here: household food waste and sky-high off-season costs. But guess what? Your freezer is basically a time machine. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to use it to solve both of these problems.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover why you should freeze your veggies, then selecting and prepping your produce, followed by the absolute magic of blanching. After that, we'll get into packaging for the freezer, some crucial freezing and thawing tips, and finally, we'll wrap up with common mistakes and food safety. So, Section 1. Why freeze your veggies? Let's talk about the real benefits of preserving the harvest.
First off, when you do this right, freezing actually locks in nutrients, bright colors, and those fresh flavors way better than traditional canning. It literally stops the clock on spoilage. You're going to save serious cash during those cold off-season months and drastically cut down on your household food waste. Plus, think about the pure convenience here. You are essentially building yourself a personal stockpile of pre-chopped, ready-to-cook ingredients for super quick weeknight meals. Total game changer.
Moving right along to Section 2, selecting and prepping produce, or as I like to call it, from the garden straight to the sink.
Now here is the golden rule. Freezing does not magically improve quality. If you put a sad, wilted carrot into the freezer, you're going to get a sad, mushy carrot coming out. Starting with peak produce is absolutely vital. Think of this as your pre-game mission. Step 1, always select young, tender vegetables. The overmature ones just get tough and flavorless, and nobody wants that. Step 2, give them a really thorough wash under cold running water. And please, skip the soap or bleach. Those can literally absorb right into the food. Finally, Step 3, trim the ends, peel the root veggies, and chop them up. Just make sure you're cutting them into uniform pieces so everything freezes nice and evenly.
But hold on a second. Before you start chopping up every single thing in your crisper drawer, we need a little strategy. Not all vegetables are created equal for the deep freeze. Take lettuce, cucumbers, radishes, or raw potatoes, for example. What do they all have in common? Tons of water. When they freeze, that high water content expands, bursts the plant's cell walls, and turns them into an absolute mushy disaster when they thaw. No thank you. So stick to the heartier stuff: carrots, broccoli, peas, corn, and green beans.
All right, Section 3. The magic of blanching. This is how we really stop the clock on spoilage.
So, what the heck is blanching anyway? Basically, it's heating or scalding your vegetables in boiling water, or sometimes steam, for a very short, highly specific amount of time. But why do we even bother doing this? Well, vegetables contain these natural enzymes that actually keep ripening the food, believe it or not, even while they're sitting in the freezer. Blanching permanently stops those enzymes in their tracks, which is exactly what preserves the flavor, color, and texture. As a little bonus, it also cleanses off any lingering dirt and makes the colors pop beautifully.
Now, what's really interesting here is how much the blanching time varies depending on the size and density of what you're cooking. You really can't just guess with this stuff. Little asparagus stalks might only need 2 minutes, while a massive thick ear of corn on the cob could take up to 11 minutes. You want to use about 1 gallon of rapidly boiling water per pound of prepped veggies. And here's the trick: don't start your timer until the second that water returns to a full boil after you drop them in. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, come on, can't I just skip the whole boiling water thing? Well, yes and no. You can freeze some raw veggies without blanching if you're really short on time. It works okay-ish for things like chopped onions or leafy greens like spinach. But honestly, the trade-off is pretty huge. Skipping the blanching step means your veggies will only survive about 3 months before the quality really drops off. Contrast that with a properly blanched vegetable, which will easily last you 8 to 12 months in the freezer. It is definitely worth the extra few minutes.
But listen, blanching is only half the magic. The absolutely crucial point here is the cooling rule. The literal second your timer goes off, you have to plunge those hot vegetables straight into an ice-cold water bath. We're talking 60 degrees Fahrenheit or colder. If you skip this, the residual heat will just keep cooking them, and you'll end up with mush. The golden rule of thumb: cool them for the exact same amount of time you boiled them. Once they're chilled, drain them and pat them completely dry so you don't end up with nasty ice crystals.
Which brings us to Section 4, Packaging for the Freezer. Welcome to the battle against freezer burn.
Once everything is completely dry, we move into the actual preservation phase. Air is your absolute worst enemy here. It's what causes that dreaded freezer burn. So, having the right armor is key. The best tools for the job are heavy-duty freezer zipper bags, vacuum seal bags if you have them, or rigid freezer-safe plastic containers. Whatever you do, avoid the classic beginner mistake of using old cardboard milk cartons or regular glass jars. Those jars are super likely to shatter into a million pieces as the food expands in sub-zero temps, and nobody wants to clean that up.
Let's walk through the packaging steps, especially if you're going the freezer bag route. First, lay your vegetables out in a nice, thin, even layer inside the bag so they freeze as fast as possible. Now, step 2 involves a genuinely brilliant hack for my budget-conscious folks out there. If you don't own a fancy vacuum sealer, just zip the bag almost all the way shut, stick a standard drinking straw right into that little gap, and literally suck the excess air out with your mouth. It is surprisingly effective. Just pull the straw out quickly and seal it tight. And finally, please label it with a permanent marker. Trust me, you are absolutely not going to remember what those weird green cubes are 6 months from now.
Moving on to Section 5, Freezing and Thawing Tips. Let's look at optimal storage and usage.
0 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the magical absolute maximum temperature your freezer needs to be set at for safe long-term storage. Keeping it at 0 or below completely stops microorganism growth in its tracks.
When you're loading those fresh packages in, try to place them directly against the walls or the floor of the freezer. This guarantees the fastest possible freeze, which is exactly what preserves that crisp texture. Once they are rock solid, then you can stack them all close together. And here is a huge tip that's going to save you so much time. When dinner time rolls around, do not thaw your vegetables. I repeat, do not thaw them. Thawing completely ruins their cellular structure. Just take them out and toss them straight from the freezer right into your boiling soups, simmering stews, or hot stir-fries. It's so easy.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 6, Mistakes in Food Safety. Let's talk about protecting all this hard work.
Let's look at the 2 biggest beginner pitfalls when it comes to timing your blanching. First up, underblanching. This is actually worse than doing nothing at all. It actively stimulates those enzymes we talked about and drastically speeds up spoilage. On the flip side, overblanching just flat out cooks the vegetable. That means you're losing all the vitamins, the crunch, and the flavor right there into your boiling water. So the lesson here? Always use a timer. Don't eyeball it.
Now here is a number that should bring you some serious peace of mind. 48. If you experience a power outage this winter, do not panic. And whatever you do, do not open the freezer door. A full unopened freezer acts like a giant cooler and will safely hold its freezing temperature for roughly 48 hours.
And that leads us perfectly into our food safety disclaimer. It's absolutely imperative that you always follow approved food safety guidelines, like the ones from the USDA or the National Center for Home Food Preservation. Things like improper freezing, cooling, or bad temperature management can seriously affect not just the quality, but the actual safety of your produce. When in doubt, always prioritize safe handling practices above all else.
And there you have it. You now have the complete step-by-step blueprint to preserve your harvest perfectly. The power to drastically slash your grocery bills and actually enjoy vibrant summer flavors in the dead of winter is literally in your hands. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Which vegetable are you going to freeze first to start building your ultimate winter stockpile? Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and happy freezing.